who cares if you make your own gun? If you have a forge and you roll your own steel and rifle it, and I mean, there was a guy who gave a gun to dad that he made himself instead of paying his bill, and
Yeah.
it was a nice looking gun. Like if you want to build a gun, you can build a gun.
And did
And
even those other homemade guns get registered in some way?
usually no, because they're just for your own use. If you want to sell them, then you have to serialize them. And if you
Right.
serialize them, there's typically some sort of a registration that happens so that it's traceable.
Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I'm Sally Taylor. This is my thoughtful and opinionated brother, John Daniels.
Very
And
opinionated.
it's all right. We like opinions. That's how we think about things, right?
Yeah.
Um, Today, you wanted to talk about the fact that several states are putting forward laws that would prevent people from being able to print gun parts on 3D printers. No.
No, it will not. It will not do that.
Well, that's what they're trying to
That's what
do.
that's their stated purpose. That's their justification. I think that's what they want to do. And I think the reason they want to do that is because they're against guns. And this is kind of
Who?
like
Who is they in this particular case?
whoever is putting forward these legislations. The I'm assuming this is coming from the left, right? Because on the right, we have people who are pro gun ownership, right?
Yeah.
Mostly. And on the left,
Yes, mostly.
it's increasing these days, especially with ICE
Yeah.
running rampant. But generally speaking, like if you really want to have guns, then you tend to be on the right. You tend to be conservative. It's in the Constitution. It's the Second Amendment, right? In the Bill of Rights. And it seems like some people don't want there to be guns, and so they're kind of working towards that, is what I feel. And the problem that I see is that, well, we have these three states, it's Washington and California and New York, which are very liberal leaning states.
They are.
And so we can kind of relatively safely presume that this is being done by people on the left. I don't have a problem with gun ownership per se. I mean, I grew up in Texas and
Right.
I
There
shot
were
guns.
guns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I shot them and I enjoyed it. And I very rarely killed anything with a gun. Never a person, right? A few
Right. Never a
snakes,
person.
a few
Maybe a
snakes,
squirrel or two.
a few squirrels.
Yeah.
Never even killed a deer. So I killed a possum once that was on the
Digging under
porch.
the house or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eating dog food on top of a picnic table or something. Anyways, um, so I'm not like against guns. I think it's better to not have guns. I live in Japan. We don't have guns here. There's probably a few that are illegally kept, but it's illegal to have guns, and there's no gun violence here. So
Right.
I'm against guns being held by the general population. But not for any other reason than just that it tends to be very peaceful and there's less gun violence and violent crime in general, I would say. But we have guns in the United States, so it's in the Constitution, it's everyone's right. So why, first of all, I question even the 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 premise of wanting to get rid of ghost guns. Because what's a ghost gun, right?
Right.
Ghost
Well,
gun
it's
is
the
just
idea that they
it's a gun
can't
with no serial
detect
number.
them.
They can't
Right.
trace them,
They can't trace
right?
them, but they can't also always detect them going through like metal detectors and that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
so there's that combined, we don't know where it came from, and we can't see it as a person walks through a metal detector because it's not made
right,
out of metal.
right. Well, there's more than one type of homemade gun, right?
Right.
And these different states have different laws in regards to registering or serializing or these various things. and I think that's a little too deep to go into right now, and I don't remember the specifics of it either. So, anyways, you can make guns at home and have your own homemade gun. That's legal, right? There's
It
nothing in the
is legal to do
Constitution
that,
that says you can only bear arms if they are manufactured by a licensed manufacturer. It doesn't say that,
right?
right?
Yeah,
So you can make your own guns and have them at home. It's not illegal. So they're basically trying to undermine the Constitution with these laws. I mean, they're not trying to. That's the effect of it, is that they're basically
right.
undermining the Constitution. So I'm against it on that alone, but that's not the extent of it. The main thing that I have a problem with in the news recently is the fact that they're bringing tools into this crusade, and 3D printers are one, but it's not limited only to 3D printers in a couple of these situations. They also want to do like CNCs. And so maybe most people don't know what a CNC is. I
I
think we
don't
all
know what a
kind of know
CNC is.
what a 3D printer is. They've been in the news and you see them around. But a CNC is like a 3D printer, except instead of like squirting out plastic onto a plate, it's you have like a block of something and it goes and it cuts away the parts that you don't want, right?
Okay, gotcha. Mhm.
Yeah, this is a
It
CNC
carves
mill.
rather than builds up.
Right, exactly. Um, and so they also want to make these things also kind of prevent the manufacture of these untraceable guns.
Weapons.
Yeah. Problem is, what they're expecting the industry to do, I mean, like this, especially with 3D printers, and to a lesser degree, but this still with CNC, there's a lot of people just making them on their own. A lot of people are building kits, right? There's not like for the hobby, for the homemade stuff, there's not a lot of like big industry that you could go to and say, you've got to do this. Like it's they're just making a regulation and saying if you want to sell your products, 3D printers or CNCs, whatever, in this state, you have to follow these rules, and they're very unrealistic rules. Like it's not something that computers can do. And
Okay.
so
Well, that's the thing. I mean, is it a computer guy coming up with the regulations around
no,
how this is going to happen?
no, 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 not at all. I think these people have probably never touched a 3D printer, let alone like kind of gotten into how they actually work. They're very simple machines that just kind of run on numbers, like literal numbers, XY coordinates. It moves from
Right.
here and it moves to over there, and it's also knows that it needs to be squirting out plastic as it moves or as it cuts or whatever. It's not smart, right? And they want it to be smart, but it's not smart,
But it's not smart. Okay. So
right?
really, it's the kind of almost passing a law which is impossible to actually adhere
Yes.
to, for
And
one.
so what the effect is going to be, yes, this is what is going to happen, is that people who rely on these machines for their livelihood, they're going to find that they suddenly can't do work anymore until they can get a
Figure
new
out
machine.
how
Yeah.
to meet the requirements
Yeah,
or just not
and
sell them in those
even if we
states.
yes, and I think that's what's going to happen. They're just going to not have 3D printers anymore in California, New York, and Washington.
So let me ask you this, John. What does Japan do where guns are illegal? You have 3D printers there. What prevents
Mhm.
people from printing guns in Japan?
Nothing.
Untraceable guns.
Nothing prevents people from doing it. Every now and then you hear about a person who does it. They get caught, however they get caught. And then usually it's because they're posting stuff on social media. And then they go to jail for having guns in a country where guns are illegal. And so we already have laws in the United States that say it's either okay for you to have something or it's not okay for you to have something. Isn't that enough? Like,
Well,
why
I mean,
now do 3D
potentially, yes.
printers?
I always follow the money myself, right? And
Mhm.
so I agree with you because of the states that these laws are coming up in and, the way that they tend to lean I agree. It's very likely left-leaning anti-gun people who are asking for this legislation.
Right.
I do understand some of the reasons that printing guns on a 3D printer are problematic for governments in general with regard
Or
to
even
not
just
being able to trace, because we
the
do
people who are
trace
making them as well.
manufactured guns.
They're putting their
Pardon?
lives in their own hands. The people who are making these guns them as well are putting their lives into their own hands. This is a plastic
Right,
little
because they're not
gun that you're
particularly safe, right?
no, you're exploding a
So
bullet inside some
that's
plastic. It's
another
crazy.
reason to say, hey, maybe this is not a good idea to have these. In
Yeah.
addition, like I said, I tend to follow the money. I wonder if the gun manufacturing companies might actually also be interested in preventing guns from being printed, because they lose money if people can just go out and you know, uh, buy a template or whatever they need to put into the machine to build the gun, then
Yeah.
that's lost revenue for the gun industry.
Yeah.
And so I would think that they probably oppose it. Again, that's
Yes.
about
Well,
more
from
about the money.
yeah, what I read is that gun right groups are against this proposed legislation.
Yes, but gun rights groups are not always the manufacturers.
No, they're
They're a
not.
different group.
Yes,
um,
that's right. But I haven't heard anything about gun manufacturers really and how they feel
okay,
about this. So
okay,
I can't say, but
right.
I
But
feel
the
like that's
NRA is
probably not
pro
it.
printed guns. The NRA is.
I think they're pro gun ownership, and who cares if you make your own gun? If you have a forge and you roll your own steel and rifle it, and I mean, there was a guy who gave a gun to dad that he'd made himself instead of paying his bill, and
Yeah.
it was a nice looking gun. Like if you want to build a gun, you can build a gun.
And did
And
even those other homemade guns get registered in some way?
usually no, because they're just for your own use. If you want to sell them, then you have to serialize them. And if you
Right,
serialize them, there's typically some sort of a registration that happens so that it's traceable.
right.
But there's nothing stopping you from making a plastic gun that can't be screened by a metal detectors without a 3D printer, right? If you buy a block of plastic and you carve it by hand, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. A ban on 3D printers won't stop you from doing that,
Yeah.
right? So this is not a thing about materials, I don't think, and I don't think it's about um, not being able to control where they go per se. I think it is mostly about the idea of after the police have the weapon in their hands, can they then look at the number and then follow it back to where it came from? Right? That's because that's all serial
Yeah.
numbers do. If
Right.
if the police never find your gun, they can never trace it, right?
So I understand why police want to be able to trace, but at the same
Mhm.
time, there are so many guns in this nation, and
Yeah,
people get them in so many ways.
yeah,
Is it just that somebody maybe broke a law by selling a gun to a guy with a felony conviction for domestic violence? I mean, like, what are the things that prevent people from legally owning a gun at this point? And what is tracing going to
hmm
do for the police in the process? Um,
right,
those are just all questions that I would have around it. I'm not a fan of guns. I
yeah,
recognize the laws we have in this land and the rights that people have to have them.
yeah,
Our family members still largely are all gun owners for the most part.
yeah,
Um, However, I do think that fewer guns in the
hmm
world is a
hmm
good thing, especially
I
if they
agree.
have a potential for being dangerous, even to the person who's wielding it.
Yes, I agree with you. I definitely think the world would be a better place with fewer guns. Um, and so that's why my main issue here is the pulling 3D printing, which I have a 3D printer sitting right next to me, and CNCs, which I have a small one in my closet for making electronic PCBs. Like making these tools that people use to make a lot
All
of
kinds of things.
normal
Yeah.
things,
Yes.
like
Yes.
99 point probably 9% of all things made on 3D printers and CNCs are not guns, right? They're not even weapons. They're other things.
Yeah.
These tools are going to like industries and companies and just even individuals who use these tools are going to have a very hard time if these laws pass because it's impossible for the current technology to do what these laws are saying. And
So
New York is
you're
the only one that has like a clause that says if it's impossible to do it now, it doesn't have to be done, but when it's possible, it needs to be done.
so that's what I was going to say, and you hit right on it. It sounds like it's the unenforceability of the law that is the problem,
Yes, it really is.
and the problems that it could cause for law-abiding people who have no intentions of doing, excuse
Right.
me, anything illegal or anything nefarious
Right.
along the way.
Yes,
And what
and the
happens to
way
all the existing 3D printers that don't already have this? What would I would
yeah.
assume would have to be software installed
Yeah,
in
so
order to
let's
prevent.
talk about some of the ways that they want this to happen. They want it to be kind of like DRM, digital rights management, whereas like it's encrypted between the printer and the computer, and then on the computer there's software that can control the 3D printer. And so that's going to take hardware inside the 3D printer. It's going to take new software inside of the computer and the 3D printer. And one of the laws, I believe it was in Washington maybe, that it says it must be, what was it? It must be secure enough that it would be difficult for an extremely skilled person to defeat, right? But the problem is
That's
you
vague
don't even
language,
have to,
isn't it?
yes, but you don't even have to be that skilled to be able to change the board in a 3D printer. A 3D printer is a couple of motors and a small computer that you can very easily change out with any other computer that can simply turn a motor on and off. So it's impossible to make it so that it can't be defeated. It's it's nearly impossible just to even do it without just completely redesigning how 3D printers currently operate. And I don't see that happening. And so what will probably really happen is that the companies that make and sell 3D printers will just simply not sell them to these
In those
states anymore.
states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might get some small businesses popping up that will try to obey the law so that they can make the 3D printers that now these states full of people can no longer purchase, right?
Right. Right.
But that's not going to be easy. It's not going to be cost effective, and it's just not going to work because it's too easy to get around.
Okay. Well, as we were saying earlier when we were talking before we started,
Mhm.
this is a fairly new topic for me. I hadn't known a lot
Mhm.
about it before. I just did a little quick search to see where this was occurring and trying
Yeah.
to assess what their motivations were.
Hmm.
I don't have a strong opinion on it because we live in a country where guns are legal.
Right.
And so there's just so many ways of getting a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, so you
Right.
can't print one, so you go buy one on the black market or you go get
Yes.
one some other way.
Yeah.
You want one that's non-detectable. I mean, I feel like there's plenty of ways to go around to doing that as well. I I don't have a problem with the intention of the laws, but I agree with you if they're not enforceable, if it collapses a very law-abiding industry in the
Hmm.
process because
Hmm.
they can't meet the requirements, then
Hmm.
they just need to be rethought. We need to
Yeah.
rethink how we're doing things.
Yeah. I think so. I think there's a lot of like creep in bureaucracy.
Mm,
People will they get maybe they're getting used to telling others what to do, and then they see where there's a bunch of people just kind of doing whatever they want, and they're like, "Wait, we can't have that. There has to be rules." Some people love just to have rules for everything, right? And so they see a place where there's not many rules and they want to make new rules. And maybe that's part of it, but the number of people that I can foresee falling into trouble for doing nothing wrong is going to be worrying because when you're just talking about building something, a screw looks like a screw, right? And you can tell what a screw is, but what does a screw hold together? Well, it holds together whatever you put it into. It could be a gun, it could be a wall, it could be a small jewelry box. Like, and so you start getting these little pieces that don't really look like they do anything, and you start putting them together, and then suddenly they start doing things. And there are screws in a lot of different things. So what if I print a screw and I don't use it for a gun, but it's on the list of things that the 3D printer has to watch and report, right? Because that's another thing. They want to be able to have the printers connected to the internet and reporting if somebody's doing something
Suspicious
illegal.
printing.
Yes, yes, yes. And so you're going to have people who are just printing normal things that the computer either can't identify or it's not on some list of approved things you can print, or there's any number of ways that things could go wrong. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be hurt legally for no reason at all.
Okay. Well, like I said, I haven't formed a strong opinion other than my general feeling that fewer guns is better. But
Hmm.
when you get into the rights of people in a country where we have rights to own guns, why you would prevent them from printing their own guns, creating their own guns, building their own guns, as
Hmm.
opposed to forcing them to pay to go through a manufacturer it's a little silly is just the primary word on the tip of my tongue is it's silly. Other
Yeah.
than that, maybe manufacturers would lose money and maybe we would have a problem with people bringing in guns to places where we don't allow them, like courtrooms and that sort of thing. But beyond that, America's covered in guns.
Yeah.
And what's the difference at this
Yeah.
point, unless we're willing
Yeah.
to change
Right. So I
gun
think,
laws
yes, if
entirely?
you want to get rid of guns, just get rid of guns, right?
Yeah.
Stop the half measures and stop trying to rope other technology into your issue. Like just get rid of guns. That's okay. I mean, everybody's going to think it's going to be hell, but it's going to actually be a better world. Basically, I think if you want to get rid of guns, just do it, right? We don't need to keep roping stuff that people use into this fight. Um, because trying to regulate 3D printing to prevent guns is just not going to do it. It's not going to work.
All right. Well, on that note, we will see what happens in these states where these laws are coming forward. And
Yeah.
if they pass, I mean, there's always a possibility they pass.
Let's
I
hope
think
they
there's enough
consult some
problems.
professionals.
Yeah, I think there's enough problems with them. They probably won't pass as long as, there's some
Well,
sane
yes.
heads saying, here are the problems with the way these laws are written. Let's
Yeah.
do this another way, another time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I
like
think
you say,
even if
their
they do
heads will.
pass, they're going to immediately be declared unconstitutional.
Okay.
You can't stop people from making guns when it's legal.
Yeah. But yes, if they can make them in any other way, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Unless there's a strong safety concern with them,
Mhm.
like I said, injuring the person who's utilizing them. But
Right.
even that happens on a regular basis with
Well, yeah,
any other gun.
you can 3D print
People
a pointing
die.
stick and stick it in your eye. I mean, come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the interesting topic and
Yeah.
conversation.
You're welcome.
And we'll keep an eye and see what happens.
All right.
All right. Till next time, brother.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.